What's up guys, Connor here with Enhance Pickleball. Today I wanted to go through some crazy effective pickleball shots and plays that you need to have if you want to start beating better players. At a higher level, you're going to need these shots if you want to win, so make sure you understand them all. The first shot on our list is the defensive lob. So, when you're really out of the point in a pickleball game, you're really out of position, your back is facing towards the court, it can be tempting to go for a super hard shot, but that's usually pretty risky, and a lot of the time you're just going to miss it. So the answer in that situation is just to try to make your opponent hit one more ball. And the main shot that we do that with is the defensive lob. So by using this shot, when I'm out of position, I can make my opponent hit one more ball until I get an easy enough shot that I can use to move forward. Now we're on a level playing field again, and I'm back in the point. If I had gone for a harder shot in that situation, I might have just missed and the point would be over. But because I kept getting the ball back, even though they were easy for him, I got enough of an opportunity to move forward and get back into the point. Technically on this shot, I just want to give myself enough height so I have more time to get back into the court. And by going higher, I actually make it a little bit tougher on my opponent to time their smash. On the flip side, our next shot is the offensive lob. And I'm sure you've already been exposed to how effective this shot could be. Generally, you hit this lob when both players are at the kitchen, right? You can try it from the back too, but usually your angle is better when you're at the kitchen and your opponent's at the kitchen. Now, I wanna go through the top 3 instances that you would go for the offensive lob. So the first instance that you go for an offensive lob is when your opponent is stretched in the kitchen. So maybe I hit a really short dink that drew him in. That gives me the opportunity to go over his head because when he's stretched into the kitchen, I have more space behind him. The second instance is when your opponent is off balance. So anytime that your opponent's stretched or out of position, it's gonna be a lot harder for them to get ready for the ball that's going high. So if I get Drew out of position with a dink like that, it can make sense for me to go over his head just because he's gonna be off balance, right? So he's not gonna be ready and in a good position to explode to get that smash. And the last instance is just off of a normal volley dink. A lot of the time, your opponent can be on perfect balance, but you can get him so surprised with the volley lob that they're not ready for it. So what that looks like is like this. When I take that volley dink out of the air, I take away his time too. So it's even more surprising if I go over his head when it's out of the air. So if you watch the pros play, you'll notice that a lot of the time when they lob, they take the ball out of the air because they take their opponent's time away when they do that. So let me show you how that looks like from the front. So we're in a normal dinking situation, and once I can get that ball out of the air, I can go for the lob like that, which might actually surprise him because he might not have been ready for me to even hit the ball out of the air. And guys, later in the video, I'm gonna go over the #1 way to prevent your opponents from moving forward and dominating the net. So keep watching if you have trouble with that. Our next move goes into how we can utilize the element of surprise. I'm talking about how you can utilize direction changes in hands battles. So there's 2 main instances where you can take advantage of that. And the first arises from a dinking situation. So if I'm dinking cross court, a lot of the time, the best way for me to accelerate is to change direction and go down the line. That was in, by the way. So just know that a great way to attack is by changing direction at the person that hasn't been hitting the ball. Because remember, he might not be paying attention. So the second instance where you can utilize this is when your opponent is accelerating at you. So when your opponent accelerates at you, they're gonna be very ready for a hard ball to come back. And a lot of the time, I feel like players need to go through the person in front of them or through the person that sped up the ball at them. But a lot of the time, their partner doesn't even know that they were going to use a speed up. So it can be very effective to change directions off that speed up and go at their partner. Let's see how that looks. So I'm in a dinking situation with Drew right in front of me. He's going to go for a hard speed up, which I can direction change at Keaton, and he might not even been ready for Drew to hit that ball, right? So it can be super effective for me to change directions at the player that didn't go hard. Okay, so what's the #1 shot that you can use to prevent your opponents from moving forward? If you said the roll volley, you're correct. So if your opponents are trying to move forward, a lot of the time you're gonna get a mid-height ball in this range where you can't really pound it, but you can get some pace on it. Because you can only get some pace on it though, what you can do is go for heavy topspin so that when the ball bounces, it jumps right into your opponent's paddle and it makes it very difficult for them to use a drop. So the technique on this shot is just to roll up, right? On the backhand, it looks like that. On the forehand, it looks like this. Usually you take this out of the air, but you can do the exact same motion off the bounce too. So the goal with this shot is to go hard at the depth of your opponent's feet so that the heavy topspin really jumps into their paddle, which makes it really hard for them to get the drop to land in the kitchen. So I'm gonna show you how that looks in real time. Keaton is going for drops. I'm using my roll right at his feet. He's trying to move forward, but this is making it a little bit harder for him to do so. And with two players, it generally looks like this. Usually they're both trying to move forward and you are looking for the biggest slots in the court that you can use to get them off balance. So you guys are trying to move forward and I'm using my topspin roll right at the depth of your feet so that I can find openings. So a lot of the time when your opponents are trying to come in, one of them will actually end up drifting forward a lot farther. If I have a ball off the bounce and I don't have an easy shot, my best bet is usually to go for a roll towards the player that's farther back. Off that shot, a lot of the time I'll get a higher ball. When I have a higher ball, it makes a lot more sense to go at the person that's closer because they have less time to react. So what you can do is run a combo where you go for a roll at the person that's farther back, and then you take that shot and you target the player that accidentally came too far in. So that looks something like this. They're trying to come in, and I see Drew's drifting forward, so I go for a roll at Keaton, then I kill it right at Drew's feet, which gets me the point. So when your opponents are trying to move forward, you can use combinations like that with throw volley to take advantage of their poor positioning. And if you have a tournament or an important match coming up soon, watch this video right here, because there's 5 golden tips in there that'll help you win your next game. Thanks for watching, guys.